Well, good morning. Check this out. There's a clown running around on YouTube, calls himself Dapper Dino. Hides his face, doesn't show himself, talks through an avatar, calling himself the Dapper Dino. And he thinks he's come to my channel and really given me the business and given me a good read on my comments before about evolutionism disciples. But what he did was he actually came and confirmed evolutionism disciples' madness. And I'm going to show you how he claims that I can't read. When I read to him articles right off the internet telling what the evolutionism disciple dogma and doctrine happens to be, doesn't like the fact that I read that off the internet to him. So he tries to cut in and in mid-sentence cut me off and redefine the things that I'm saying or recharacterize what I'm... Just really insidious crap. Let's just Google it like anybody else would do, a web search. How did life get started according to evolution? And we'll take the top answer. How did life begin? Scientific American magazine. And this article goes on. Is the existence of life on Earth a lucky fluke or an inevitable consequence of the laws of nature? A lot of it's done in the questioning mode. Scientists debate a range of ideas about how life on Earth began. The most widely accepted scenarios involved the geochemistry of the planet's surface. So this is the the most widely accepted scenario. In the early universe, vast molecular clouds of dust and gas condensed to form a protostar surrounded by protoplanetary disk. Tiny dust grains. Notice they haven't said where this dust cloud came from. The dust was just there. Tiny dust grains consisting of silicate minerals coated with ice stuck together and assembled into larger particles. Okay, so things are sticking together. Earth was formed because it was not too hot and not too cold, not too dry and not too wet. Liquid water existed on the surface. Just liquid water existed there. Doesn't say how H2O came about. Just kind of swirled together and became a planet. The first land was probably volcanic. Volcanic here being code word for rocky, forming island arcs in the vast ocean. Ponds or lakes in volcanic regions were likely environments for jump-starting life, okay? They're likely environments for jump-starting life. The early atmosphere had no oxygen. It consisted mainly of nitrogen and carbon dioxide with smaller amounts of hydrogen, water, and methane. Lightning, asteroid impacts, and ultraviolet light from the sun acted on the atmosphere to generate hydrogen cyanide, a compound of hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen. Okay, well, we still haven't been told where this lightning came from, where electricity came from, where these asteroids came from. Assumably, they formed out of swirling dust clouds the way the Earth did. But it doesn't say any of that, so we have to suppose. And then we get here raining on into volcanic or crater lakes, okay? So you've got rain in rocky lakes. The cyanide reacted with iron brought up by the water circulating through the rocks. Okay, so the cyanide came up from the rocks. Out of the rocks. The resulting iron cyanide compounds accumulated over time, building up into a concentrated stew of reactive chemicals. So the chemicals from the rocks that came up from the rocks formed a stew in craters. Do you see where I'm going with this? You think we came from a rock. Life as we know it requires RNA. Some scientists believe that RNA emerged directly from these reactive chemicals. In other words, it just sprang up out of the rock water, nudged along by dynamic forces in the environment. Nucleotides, the building blocks of RNA, eventually formed, then joined together to make strands of RNA. Some stages in this process are still not well understood because we can't. It's a fantasy. UV light drove the conversion of cyanide into simple sugars. Phosphate catalyzed chemical reactions between these sugars and cyanide derivatives. In the presence of UV light and phosphate, RNA nucleotides were formed. Once RNA was made, some strands of it became enclosed within tiny vesicles formed by the spontaneous assembly of fatty acids, lipids, into membranes, creating the first protocells. As the membranes incorporated more fatty acids, they grew and divided. At the same time, internal chemical reactions drove replication of the encapsulated RNA. So, once again, you liars, you lying sacks like Dapper Dino dude, I think his name is Timmy, fitting, try to deny the overarching doctrine of evolutionism is that life started from rocks.